today, as promised, we're giving you a pie video. What are we making today?
Pumpkin pie filling.
Yep. Is there any pumpkin in our pumpkin pie filling?
There's squash in it.
There's cushaw squash in it.
But no pumpkin.
Yeah. So today we're gonna be showing you how we make the filling and how we store the filling, because we kind of make our pumpkin pie filling in great big batches and we use it 1 or 2 pies at a time.
So if we want a pie, all we have to do is put a crust out and get one of these packages out of the deep freeze and pour it in your crust and bake it.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So last night we started cooking our squashes. I will show you that footage right now.
Cushaw.
Or crookneck squash, right?
Right.
Okay.
My dad called them the green and white crookneck. Duh. But when you go ask for them, or if you look for them on the internet, they're called cushaws. I'm gonna cut it in half.
Like this.
My dad used to dice this thing up and peel it and boil it. And I don't know, I got to thinking one time, why can't I just bake it?
In the oven.
So I cut it in half, like this, and then I take out...
Scoop out the guts like you do a pumpkin.
And there's not a lot of guts. It's a lot of nice meat. A lot of nice squash meat. And it's a really mellow meat. It's not mealy. You know, sometimes pumpkins kind of got a thicker, denser, mealy texture to it. This is really smooth.
Can you use butternut squash?
You can. But I like the mild flavor of this. And butternut squash you're using for other things, so you're kind of familiar with that flavor associated with other foods. And this is more pumpkin-like.
Is it hard to cut in half?
I use a great big knife. I think you could probably use your
electric knife?
Your electric knife, your serrated knife. But I just basically stab into it. And I try, because you know this is the hollow part right here, and this is all solid meat here. So I try to stab into it, and I just work it across, because you're going to get that hollow part. And then I just try to kind of keep as close to what I think the midline is going to be as I possibly can. And then I just keep working that knife down. So if you all know an easier way, please don't hesitate to, you know, let us know what that is.
Do you cut through the stem? Do you cut the stem part off?
The stem? No, I usually just leave the stem intact. You know, it cuts off just like the pumpkin part would. And anybody that's carved a pumpkin, you know that it's a little bit thick, but sort of like a watermelon. It's ripe, and you can actually kind of hear it pop. I don't know if you can hear that. It's sort of splitting.
It wants to be
It wants to come out. Yeah. So once I get it kind of started, particularly through this back end, then I just put my fingers in there and it will wedge apart. And it's pretty easy after that. It's pretty easy to kind of finish the cut from that point on. And you'll actually kind of hear it split, sort of like a watermelon. If you've ever cut a really ripe watermelon, but you can see how it cut on its own right through here. It wants to be split apart.
All right, so you've got your squash cut in half. What's next?
Then I take a big spoon, and you just, I like to have, you know, a pretty good hole of the spoon, and I just use that spoon to gently tease that.
Well, that looks like a tablespoon, not a great big serving spoon. So you don't need a big spoon.
No, you don't have to have a great big spoon. No, you're correct. But see how that comes out just so easy? Yep. And if you want to save these seeds,
grow your own?
All you have to do is, you know, you want the best looking seed. Like that's a really nice seed right there. This is a crummy seed.
Yeah.
It's like an empty ovum. This is a nice seed, and you just lay them out on a paper towel, and then those will dry out and cure, and just keep them in an envelope, like a mailing envelope, that will breathe so it will stay dry.
So not plastic.
Not plastic.
Because in plastic they will sweat.
They'll sweat and they'll mold. But let them dry out for a few days on a paper towel, and then put them in a paper envelope that will breathe. And then whenever you're ready, depending on if because these will grow inside. You just have to have a lot of space because they're vines like
Squashes. Yep, like pumpkins grow on vines.
just like in Cinderella. If you think about the vines.
There's a trash can over here. She's not dumping that on the floor. I feel like it's important for you to know that because...
But look at these beautiful seeds, and they're so easy to take out of there. Each one of these will yield a plant. Now, when I was a kid, we were trained by my dad that you would plant each nice seed, like this is not a nice seed. You would plant them in what's called a hill of 3, possibly 4 seeds, because you're going to get 3 great big long vines that will grow anywhere from 15 to 30 feet. So here
You need a garden.
you need a garden,
Not
and you
an
can
indoor.
you can grow a hill, but you need it about each one of these hills needs to be 10 feet from another. Oops, sorry, guy.
Threw that guy away.
I just threw him away. You need each one of these hills to be about 10 feet apart. Now, what a lot of people will do is they will grow these in those little things that you get from like Lowe's, and when you
The size of an egg carton.
and when you put water in them, they just expand. And then you'll get your starters. And then if you're in the like
Above the
north
Mason-Dixon.
yeah,
Where you get frost.
yeah. If you're above where the frost, folks get frost ordinarily, you can put them in like a little greenhouse. And what my dad used to do is he would dig not a trench, but he would dig a little pit in the ground about so wide and about this big, and then you just put like an old window over it or a piece of plexiglass. It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
In the ground?
Yeah, just 6 inches in the ground. And so he would start these in those little seed pods, and once they got started, then about March, he would put them inside underneath that. They would get kind of incubated because of the heat. The ground's going to keep them warm. It's not going to frost below about 6 inches anymore, and that's how deep your like little square pit is.
Okay, so you don't want to do this pit thing in the winter. Okay.
No. He actually had an old glass door, and so we just lift that door off. But it had, like the little wooden frame around it, but it was an old door that he got off of some house somewhere. And so then the sunlight goes through that door, and it makes you a little tiny greenhouse in there.
Huh.
So then you would grow those things.
Was your dad a hobbit?
He
Because
was one tall hobbit. My dad was like 6'1", 6'2".
a hobbit on stilts
He
then.
was a hobbit on stilts.
Okay.
But you would grow these things in the ground, and then
Did you plant them in the ground, or did you just stick them in the egg carton in the pit?
When they're in the egg carton, you only want to leave them in there for just to germinate.
Okay, just to
and
sprout.
To become sprouts. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you want to kind of plant them in bigger planters, and then you'll want to transplant them a 3rd time. If you live in the South where you don't get the frost, you don't have to do all that because you're not going to get a frost. So
Or you could just buy them whole and you don't have to grow them at all.
You can just germinate them and plant them probably as early as March. But it does take about 120 days for you to get your squash.
All right, so we're at this stage. We've got it hollowed out and we've got butter.
And I just like to take a little bit of butter and I just rub the butter on it because I don't want it to get too dried out or too burned.
It's lotion.
Yeah, you're just putting lotion on it.
So burned. This guy is going in the oven?
Yep. We're
Okay.
gonna bake him.
At what temperature?
I bake him at 350.
All right, for how long?
About an hour till he's fork tender.
Nice.
So everybody's oven is a little bit different, but about 350 for about an hour.
Face up, face down.
Face up.
So like this.
Because there's got to be some liquid, some
like a
pumpkin
bowl.
juice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I put the butter inside, and I don't want that liquid to drain out all over my countertop. But you just run that butter inside of there, and it's not perfect. We're baking.
It doesn't have to be perfect, but just rub it down. So once you've buttered your squash,
don't season it. No salt, no pepper.
okay. So just butter into a hot oven on like a sheet tray. sheet pan kind of thing?
I use a jelly roll pan.
Okay.
And you can tell, I mean,
so these just came out of the oven?
These just came out. They've been resting maybe 10 minutes. I mean, they're still scalding hot.
Yeah, there's steam coming off them. You can see it.
You can see how, easy it is just to peel that up.
And it goes in a bowl with some more butter.
I put it in a great big bowl with some more butter.
And it just scoops right out of
there.
there.
And you scoop it out. And you try to get close to the skin, but you don't want to get the skin.
It's pithy. You don't want to eat that.
No.
Yum.
And then I'll take the boat motor to it. So I'm kind of cleaning this out, and you can just it just comes off that skin so easily, and you just kind of gently getting it. And some places, like right here, it gets a little closer than others, but you don't want it. That's probably because this was against the pan, and so it got hotter. But I want to show you this part. This was a bruise. And I knew that going in, but I didn't want to cut a hole and cut that out, because any of this liquid, this juice right here,
would have just drained out.
Would have just leaked out all over that hole.
She just left all that icky stuff in there. She scooped around it.
And this is still pretty hot.
Very hot. Well, there's steam still coming out of it.
But now you can see it.
Yeah.
See where that bruise was?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that bruise was there when I cooked it. But I didn't want to try to cut it out because I didn't want that hole in there. And you might, miss a piece or two, or you could have scraped it closer.
That's
With
okay.
This much pumpkin.
Squash.
Whatever. Yeah. You're going to have plenty.
You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
So now we scoop out the other guy. This has 1 stick of butter in it.
1 stick of butter.
Plus the butter that you rubbed it down with.
Yeah. Which was, in the grand scheme of things, that was
sort of negligible.
Right.
But this is not a health food.
No.
Squash is a vegetable, but this is not a health food. So when we say boat motor, we mean immersion blender. It's a stick blender.
I don't know if you can still see the steam, but
kind of not. It's still steamy.
It's hot.
So this is 1 whole squash, 2 halves, and 1 stick of butter?
Yep.
Cool. It's so smooth it looks like it's been retouched on camera. Look at that.
Wow.
But it hasn't. It's just been pureed with a stick blender. Nice. So what do we do with this? Because we're not doing anything else with it tonight, correct?
No, but some people at this point will can it. My concern or my issue with that is I know this is set aside for pumpkin pie. We're not going to do anything else with it, so there's no reason to can it. I will go ahead and let it cool overnight, and then tomorrow we'll put the eggs and the sugar and the seasonings in it, and we will get it all ready to be a pumpkin pie. Then we'll put it in Ziploc bags. The Ziploc bag will contain the exact amount, will contain the amount of
filling
one
pie
filling.
Cool.
And then when you're ready for the pie, you get out the pie dough that we made in an earlier video, and you get out one of these and you just let it defrost, and then you just
bake it.
It's
like DIY at home Marie calendars, but better.
So for instance, Friday I had a coworker that wanted a pie, and I got up maybe 15 minutes earlier and I rolled out the pie dough.
Because you had set it out the night before.
Correct. I set it out the night before. I rolled out the pie dough, put it in the pie pan, and poured in the pie filling, and then I was able to take a pie to work for my coworker on Friday.
You baked it before work. Nice.
And by the time I got it in the oven, by the time I got out of the shower, it was
ready to go?
It was ready to go.
So tonight we're going to put this in a container in the fridge.
Yep.
All right. So that'll cool and we'll deal with it tomorrow.
Correct.
So the rest of the night will be spent dealing with these guys and making them look like that. All 3 squashes that we cooked last night fit in here, and that does say 12 liters. We've got over 12 liters of squash filling. Now, we don't have to use all of this for our pumpkin pie filling, we're gonna use what is our limiting factor to decide how much filling we're gonna make today. We are using a cookbook, but the recipe is not part of the cookbook. It's just living inside the cookbook cover.
So this nasty piece of paper, this piece of paper is my recipe right here. This is like for just 1 or 2 pies, and this is the recipe for mini pies.
5 pies.
Then this is my dad's recipe. That's his handwriting.
It looks like my handwriting. I never knew that.
Yep.
Huh, okay. So we've got our squash. We've got our sweetened condensed milk.
Eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Vanilla. Yummy vanilla. It's got to be that kind.
And then over here,
cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
Nutmeg. Ginger. Cloves. Salt. And then I like to go ahead and measure it out into individual little cups, and then go ahead and put them all together, just in case you miscount, which I can do sometimes. I get distracted and doing more than one thing at a time. But then I know I've got the right seasonings together, and I can put it all together and blend it. It's really, really pretty simple. It's a little time consuming, but it is very easy.
Once you have your squash ready and prepared.
And you could use canned pumpkin. I know a lot of people who do use canned pumpkin, but I just think you're going to get a lot better pie if you make your own pie.
Yep. I agree. I concur 100%. Mom's pie, Mom's pumpkin pie is the best pumpkin pie.
Thank you.
When I was a kid in the 2nd grade, we were learning fractions in school. And so they had some moms come in. It was like fall time, so they had a bunch of moms come in and they put us all in groups of like 3. And my mom makes her own pumpkin pie filling. She brought in all the stuff, so we're all making this, or my group is making our pie, and it looks a different color than when you make a pumpkin pie with canned pumpkin.
That's not as orange.
So my friend Sarah, I don't know if she remembers this, but I'm sure she's watching. She walked up to our group and she was like, your pie looks different than everyone else's. Why does your pie look different from everyone else's? And this other kid in my group, I will allow him to remain nameless, he was just like, because ours is the only one that's right. And that's how I feel. I feel like this is the only right way to make pumpkin pie. Probably because I grew up with it, but if you make this and you eat it, you will understand. I promise you will understand, because it's just so good. So we've got sweetened condensed milk. How many cans? Just one
for now. I want to get the eggs blended up. Sometimes you get such a big batch going, so I got my eggs in there.
How many?
I get 10.
10 eggs, 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, because it gets really thick and gloopy if you don't mix up the sweetened condensed milk and thin it out a little bit first.
Yeah. All right, so that looks like that. Then while it's just a small amount, I want to go ahead and put my cinnamon.
That's ginger?
Yeah. Nutmeg.
Mm-hmm.
Ginger.
Cloves.
Oh, cloves. And salt.
Salt. All right, so we've got our cushaw squash seeds that have been sitting out on a paper towel overnight, just to kind of dry off so they aren't sticky anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and put them into their envelope.
I like to open my cans this way, because with sweetened condensed milk, there's that rough edge, and you chew up your spatula. Thank you for the word.
When you scrape
the
thing out, because we are not on the Food Network, so we scrape the bowl, we scrape the can of sweetened condensed milk.
It's a really sharp edge, so you don't want to touch it, and you want it to go right in the trash when you're done. But if you turn your can opener the other way,
you chew up your spatula.
Yeah.
Look at that scraping action. Oh yeah.
I want to get all that, because the sweet condensed milk is where the sugar comes from.
Yeah, because we don't add any sugar to this, do we?
Nope. I am ready for squash, and 1.5 cups, and I'm making enough for 4.
So 1.5 times 4. All right, in here we've got 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk. We've got our
4
eggs. Oh, 4 cans.
4 cans.
4 cans of sweetened condensed milk. The eggs, the spices, and now we're adding squash.
Yeah.
Just kind of measure it, scoop it out of there, and put it in here.
And it's 1.5 cups, but we're
per
doing
pie.
a 4-time we're multiplying, there we go.
Yeah.
We're doing 4 batches.
Because we like to make a ton of this at a time because I can eat so much pumpkin pie.
Well, and then it's going to last because it's raw. It's going to last in the deep freeze all year long. When I was a kid and we would make this for Thanksgiving, we would make like 1 or 2 pies for dinner, but then we would make a pie for everybody to take home.
Oh, wow.
And we would have lots of people over.
Did they bring their own pie dishes? How did that work?
No, my parents, somehow they would give them all back. So it looks a lot thinner than you might think. It looks like soup, you know?
Looks like mushroom soup, but like browner.
So now, 2.5 tablespoons of vanilla. And you could probably just stir it at this point, but I want to make sure that that squash, that pumpkin that we put in there,
is completely
blended up, because you're eating a pumpkin pie. I don't want to bite into a piece of squash.
Could you make this in a regular blender if you don't have a stick blender?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I feel like it's important to say that this is very messy. There's no way around that. It's just messy. You're gonna make a mess. So this is made pie filling over here. It's ready to go in a pie pan. You could preheat your oven and bake a pie with this right now. We're not gonna. We're gonna save it in a Ziploc bag in the freezer.
And for our pie pans, the quart bag holds just enough to make 1 large pie, 1 9-inch pie.
Yep. So this had 4 quarts in it, so it should make 4 Ziploc bags, 4 quart size zip top bags that we put in the freezer, and we make sure to label them with the year that it was made and what's in it.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Beautiful. All right, it is several hours later, and now Mom has made 16 pies worth of filling and put it in Ziploc bags. And when I finish showing you this, I'm gonna take you inside and show you something else that's really, really special. So this is an example of what we've got. This is not everything, but these are Ziploc bags, and basically you freeze this till it's solid and then keep it forever until you're ready to make a pie. When you're ready to make a pie, you yank this out of the freezer and you let it defrost.
I like to try to get as much of the air out as I can,
right,
so there's no air in it. And this has got a little air bubble, that's got a little air bubble.
That's okay.
But some of them are smaller, some of them are brimful for a larger pie, and then some of them are just, a regular pie's worth.
And you kind of have to understand her shorthand.
Pumpkin pie.
Made November 1st.
And I know that's...
Pumpkin pie,
yeah,
this is number 6.
So...
But anyway, you freeze these, and when you're ready to make a pumpkin pie, you pull it out of the freezer and you let it defrost until it's liquid again. And you pour it in a pie crust and you bake it. And you did see us do that in the previous video, which was, well, not the previous video on this channel, but the previous baking video, which was the pie dough video. Since you already saw us baking them in the previous video, say hi, Mom.
Mom!
You worked really hard today. I'm not gonna show you baking a pumpkin pie, but I am gonna show you what she did the last several hours while I made pumpkin martinis and watched movies. Because I'm not gonna lie, that's what happened. So Mom made these teeny tiny little pies. Here's my hand for reference. Okay, they're itty bitty. I think they're what, 4 inches in diameter. They're so cute.
We're gonna give these to the neighbors.
Yep, we're gonna give these away to the people in our neighborhood, and I'm excited. They have no idea what's coming, but I think it's gonna be great. So, with that, I'm gonna leave you. That's gonna be it for the pumpkin pie baking video. If you guys have any questions, leave them in a comment. I'll try to get Mom to answer them, and if she won't, I will. But you guys will see us in another video really, really soon.